On the New Breed of Golf, I'm talking about all the power angles, wrist angles, shaft angles, spine angle. It's all about angles. Let's do this. Time for a transformational tip presented by Morgan Franklin. We're talking about compression. No, we're not talking about practice. We're talking about compression. I want to teach you how to compress the ball properly so that you can get maximum distance, maximum spin, and feel that centeredness of strike. Now, what does that look like? Well, it looks totally different than the address. In order for me to compress this ball properly, I have to get in my mind that impact and address look totally different. At address right here, shaft of the golf club is basically coming up into the body at a perpendicular angle. Not necessarily. There are those who are there and there are those who are slightly forward. That's fine. Alex Noren's one of those guys, gets the hands up there. That's fine. But what has to happen is at impact, the handle has to be ahead of the club head. In fact, on the PGA Tour with a 6-iron, you're right around 9 degrees of shaft lean. Well, 9 degrees of shaft lean is quite a bit. What does that look like? That probably looks like something like that. And if I get into that position of strike here, where the shaft is leaning to that outside hip, and then I come back, make a swing from there, feel that exact same thing, what's going to end up happening is I'm going to bring my strike down. I'm going to bring the launch down. So when we get the launch to come down, now all of a sudden, I've got that one there at about 16 degrees. That ball jumped off the face, 180-yard shot. Now, you're not getting that. Why are you not getting that? Well, one of the reasons why is you don't think impact and address are different. They are, and we have to understand that. The second thing is that you get so caught up in trying to hit the ball that you don't think about where the handle is relative to the club head. And the handle has to be ahead of the club head. So, when I get set up and I think about my strike, I'm thinking about the handle of the golf club getting forward. Well, where is it? Well, the handle of the golf club is basically right in the center of my chest. When I lose compression or lose strike, the handle of the golf club is back on my trail shoulder, in my trail hip, or somewhere between the right side or the right half of my body here. So a poor strike, poor compression is going to look like this. And when I hit that shot, what you're going to see is, come on up here to the screen, what you're going to see is my launch angle goes to 23.5. That is, what, about 7.5, 8 degrees more than that 16 that I had. Look at all the distance that I lost. I lost about 40 yards. So what we want to do is we want to embrace the idea that the handle is ahead of the club head, but the handle is right in front of my chest or on the lead side of my body. And if you get there, you're going to flight this out a little bit lower. You're going to strike this ball before you hit the ground, and the ball's going to jump out a little bit lower in the apex. So, or I shouldn't say that way. The apex will be farther from you when you do that. So, feel that shaft in there. Good strike. Flight it out again. Now remember, before I was at 16 degrees on this and 180 in the distance. What do we get here? 15.8. Round up, and then what do we get? 182.5. Right around 180. So we're getting that shaft lean that way. Now, great, Michael. Thanks so much. How do I do it? Okay, I knew you were going to ask that question. So here's what you're going to do. One of the things that you're going to do is you're going to get a fan. And this fan's going to help you, because what it's going to do is it's going to make it really difficult for you to chuck the club head like this. What you're going to feel is you're going to feel, particularly with the weight, the body is going to start to get involved here. So I start to swing, and that fan delays that angle, and so that helps me. Now, the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to get a little bit comfortable with an image. So I'm going to take a little Breed bar here, and I'm going to set this thing up. So what we do is we have this club, or this Breed bar, laying down on the ground, and now I'm going to set it at about a 9-degree angle. Now, when I set this up here, you can see that this is pointing right up here to my lead hip. Okay? with a 6-iron. Shaft of the golf club is going to be back here. And so now, all I'm going to do is match that up. So I take that and I match that up. Now, and I think I got to change that just a little bit more. Yeah, right there. That's about my 9 degrees. Now, what does that feel like? What does that look like? Well, first thing is from there, you can see that my hands are right in the center of my chest. This is not the impact that I want. This is not the impact that I want. So when I'm looking at this, I can go, well, that isn't matching to this. I need this to be up there like that. So now if I just put it there, put the shaft there, and then go and get all these things where I want. Now my chest is up here. Body is rotated open. I got a lot of things going on. All right. So now let's put a ball in here. You set that up just the way I want. Make sure it's in the green there. Beautiful. And now, that should be pretty close right there, Gibbsy. So good there. That's probably matched up pretty nicely. All right, so now I get that feeling of that. And now, I'm going to hit it. Okay, so that was a great strike. I replay it in my mind. I go, okay, that felt really good. That came right out of the center of the club face. And I feel like I matched that up pretty nicely. Try it again. Same thing. I'm feeling that shaft up there. Okay, good. Okay, excellent. Now I've done my practice. Take my breed bar, put it over there. And now I'm going to imagine that same thing in my mind. I'm feeling the fan slowing down the head, accelerating the handle. My hands are in front of my chest, shaft leaning forward. See if we can get this thing to 16 degrees again. Good strike. A little bit of an open face, so you can see that thing spinning off to the right. I know you're interested, so come on up here. How did I do? Well, I got 17.5, a lot of right spin. So the club face being open threw the ball up into the air. How do we know that? Well, the right spin tells me that, but my loss of distance tells me that as well. So got a little bit of practice to do. But what I need you to understand is this. If you want to create that compression, you want to take your game to the next level, you've got to strike the ball solidly. And the way you're going to do that is understand impact and address look totally different. And that shaft has to be leaning forward, which means the handle has to be ahead of the golf club. And, the head of the club head. And the way you're going to do that is feel the hands of the golf club get back to the center of your chest. In the backswing, they leave the center. We got to get them into the center of the chest. And when you get them into the center of the chest and the shaft leaning forward, now you're going to create some compression. Now you're going to transform your game. And that's our transformational tip presented by Morgan Franklin. Time for a grip tip presented by Golf Pride. So we're talking about creating some power. How do we create power? By understanding the power angle. That's what I'm talking about. What's the power angle? Well, come on over here to the Surface Hub. I want to talk to you about something that we call radial deviation. What's radial deviation? It's this thing right here. This is our ability to take the angle of the wrist and the hand and set it at an angle that it's like that. Now, how are we doing that? Well, it starts with how we're holding this golf club. And what I mean by that is this. I see this so many times. Players get in here, they put the club into their hand where it's going across the hand at about a 60-degree angle. When they hold it here, they get what I call a short thumb, which means that the tip of the thumb and the first knuckle of the index finger are at the same level of the grip. And when I get that held like that, what ends up happening is that my ability to lever this club stops shy of 90 degrees, and the only way I can create more is to cup my wrist. That's the only way I'm going to be able to hit this golf ball with any kind of power. Well, if I don't do that, now I got to bend the lead elbow. And when I start putting an angle in my elbow, now I'm starting to lose power. So, let me show you what I mean, because you're going to see it when I swing the club. So I'm going to put it in the hand at that angle. Index finger, thumb on the same line. Now I get set up. Now, at address, in the down the line view, Gibbers, what we're going to see is the shaft of the golf club is going to be coming into the body right around the stomach or possibly even up into the chest. And what happens when we're here is grip pressure is going to go up and we're not going to be able to get any leverage. So this swing looks like that. It's very clumsy, has no speed, there's no whip in that club. And as a result, I only hit that ball 125 yards, and that's a 6-iron. Now, here's what you have to do to get that power angle. And it starts with the holding of the club, just what I'm talking about. So I've got my fingers going like this. As they go across parallel to the ground, now I'm going to take the shaft of the club and I'm going to drop it in here perpendicular to that. And then I wrap my fingers first, put my heel pad of my hand on second, and then put the thumb on. And what you can see when I do that is my thumb is well down the shaft and well past that first knuckle. By the way, one of the other things you might be getting is you might be getting blisters on your hands. Maybe you're getting a little rub out on a knuckle, and that's because you're holding it improperly. You're going to create this angle here. Now watch what happens when I'm here. First of all, I can take this and I can stretch this club out almost parallel to the ground. And then when I come up here like this, now I can get this to go past that 90-degree angle. And that is the power angle that we're trying to get. So now when I come down here, I'm going to grip this that proper way. So I get my thumb down the shaft like that, put my hands on here like this. And now when I take the club back, now I can get a lot of angle at the top there. And when I get that angle at the top there, and I make that swing, which wasn't really working really hard, I hit that golf ball 171 yards, and I had a ball speed of 117. I picked up a ton of speed and a lot more distance just by altering the grip. My arm traveled to the same spot. My body moved at the same rate of speed. But because I didn't have the whip of the golf club, because I didn't create the angle, I didn't get the distance that I wanted. So now what I want to do is, now that I've taught you how to create a power angle at address, now I want to talk to you about how to create a power angle into the swing. And it's a really simple thing that you're going to do. What you do is you bring the ball in. I'm going to get a tee, and I'm going to put the tee behind the ball and inside the strike line by about a foot. So that's going to look just like that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the club back and I'm going to lever the club so that it goes over that tee. I don't want to lift my body up because that doesn't create an angle. And I don't want to bend my arms because that doesn't create the power angle in the wrist. What I want to do is I want to be able to lift this up into the air by setting an angle. And when I get my arm parallel to the ground, the club shaft should be perpendicular to the ground. When I take the club back, if my arm's parallel to the ground and the shaft is parallel to the ground, I'm probably not going to get the power angle when I want it. And what I want you to do is I want you to get this angle between address, which is when your arm is perpendicular to the ground, more or less, and when your arm is parallel to the ground. In this first movement of the arm, the lead arm, from not moving and perpendicular to moving and parallel, that's when I want you to get this angle, somewhere in here, okay? So we set that grip exactly the way we want, and now we take it back. We're going to hinge that up into the air over that tee, and by the way, you'll know that you did it when you didn't strike the tee, okay? So now we go like this, lever it, and now swing through. And now when I swing through there, what I get is, again, 116.4 miles an hour ball speed, pretty straight shot, 172 in the air, I got that one. Let's try that again. Remember, I'm about a foot back, and it's just slightly inside. Get that angle, and now lever it over that tee. That was a fabulous strike. This one's going to go over that basket. And that ball speed, watch the ball speed pick up. Come on up here. Watch the ball speed right here. That ball speed is 120.8 miles an hour. That ball carried 180 yards. So what I got there was exactly what I want. I got that great strike, that effortless power, and I did that all by focusing on what I do when I'm holding this golf club as I take it in the address position, and then work on levering it as I'm making the backswing. And when you hold it properly and then set the angle properly in the backswing, what you're going to end up getting is you're going to create that power angle. And when you get that power angle, you're going to get a lot of ball speed, you're going to get a lot of distance, you're going to get a lot of consistency, and you're going to be a lot happier. And that's a grip tip presented by Golf Pride. What am I doing dressed like this with a flashlight? You know what I'm doing? I'm proving it. Presented by Titleist. One of the most important things that you can do is maintain your spine angle through the strike. And it's one of the biggest problems that I see when I'm teaching my players and I'm watching amateurs struggling. You at home, you need to keep your spine angle. Now, I want to give you an idea and an image on how you're going to do it. First, here's what I want you to imagine. I want you to imagine that this CD that's around my neck is a flashlight. And that flashlight is on just like this. Now, when I'm making a proper golf swing, and when you watch players at elite levels making proper golf swings, what you're going to see is you're going to see their chest pointing down to the ground as they swing through the shot, and then ultimately the chest is going to end up pointing towards the target. What I see so many of you at home doing is your chest does a pretty good job in the backswing, but when you start to come through, now all of a sudden that flashlight starts pointing up into the air, it's pointing over here, and it never points to the target. That's got to change. Turn the flashlight off, and I'm going to grab this 6-iron. Now, I want you to imagine that this CD is that flashlight. And what I want you to do, and what you need to do to improve your strikes, gain distance, and consistency is keep this flashlight pointing down to the ground and then ultimately to the target. The angle of the chest, one of the most important angles in the game of golf. And elite players do this, and players that struggle, you at home, you're not doing this. Here's what you're going to do. In the backswing, at address, you're going to feel like your chest is pointing down to the ground. Don't just round your shoulders. I can round my shoulders and my chest can be pointing over here. I want to create this angle so that at address, my hips are back here, my shoulders are on this side of the center line. So let's call the center line my toe line. And I've got my chest and shoulders over here. I've got my rear back over here. Now what I'm going to do is in the backswing, I'm going to maintain that same relationship. And then when I come down, I want to continue to maintain that relationship. Shoulders are over here, hips are over there, chest is down to the ground. So that would look like this. Good strike. When I'm done with my strike, by the way, you can see my right shoulder now is lower than my left shoulder. That's an indication that my chest has stayed pointing to the ground. When you get to where your shoulders are at the same level through the strike, chances are that you exposed your chest to the sky instead of pointing down to the ground. The flashlight's pointing up instead of pointing down, and you start to lose that strike. So we get this image. Chest down, rotating, flashlight pointing down to the ground at the strike, flashlight pointing down over here through the shot, flashlight pointing to the target. Bring that golf ball in there. Set up. Shoulders are on this side of the toe line. Rear's on that side of the toe line. Good setup position. Good address. Good angles. Right shoulder's lower than the left shoulder through the strike. Golf ball has a good apex. Does it cap it? Oh, just a little to the right. Now we come over here and we look at some things that are really important in being able to be consistent. And one of them is where the ball starts, and the other one is how much spin are we creating on this shot. So we look at the start line, the horizontal launch, 1.4 degrees to the right. That's very good. If I'm in between 2 degrees in my start lines, I'm doing great, either right or left, doing great. And then the second thing is the amount of spin that we get on the ball, or side spin as we call it. And on my side spin here, only 47 RPMs of left spin. What does that mean? That means that my golf ball started slightly to the right of the target and had just a slight draw to it. Not a lot, just a slight draw. So a very consistent distance. I got also 175 yards out of that strike. Let's do this one more time so you can see how this works. And again, you're thinking about, in your pre-swing, getting set up so that your shoulders are on the target line side of the toe line and your rear is away from that. This is going to counterbalance you, and so you're going to feel your weight distribution in your feet properly. And then from here, now all we're doing is feeling that chest really staying down to the ground. And when you come through here, now it's pointing at the target with the trail shoulder lower than the lead shoulder. Another very good strike here. And Greg, let's be prepared to play this one again, because this is what I want to have happen. And what you're going to see is you're going to see this ball doesn't have a lot of curve. Let's play that again. You can see it start out on the right side of the target. It's got just a little bit of a draw coming right down where I want it to go. Excellent shot there. Excellent spin. Excellent start line. Just 1.9 degrees to the right. So the key to your distance, the key to your consistency is the angle of the chest, and specifically preparing yourself to keep that chest down to the ground, making sure that when you come through, it's pointing to the ground in front of the golf ball, and then when you're done, it's pointing to the target, and the trail shoulder is below the lead shoulder. And when you do that, you'll improve your ball strike, and you'll be proving it, and that's presented by Titleist. Are you having an inconsistent strike on the golf ball? You're hitting it out on the toe, you may be hitting it fat. Well, you know what? It's time for a FootJoy fix. How are we going to improve impact? Well, we have to improve the lie angle of the golf club at impact. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, what does the shaft of the golf club look like when you're coming into that strike? Because the reason why you're missing the impact is you're varying this lie angle of the golf club as it comes into impact. And why is that happening? Well, there's 3 reasons. 1, the flexion of the wrist in the backswing. I'm going to show you what I mean by that. The second thing is your release point. What is the release point and where is it happening? We're going to discuss that. And then finally, the height of the handle. I'm going to cover that. Now, let's talk about the flexion in the wrist. What I mean by that is this. When you take the golf club back, what you end up doing is you're rotating the golf club in the backswing and you're creating a cup in the wrist. I want you to get a flexion. Flexion is when, in this camera 1, where I feel like I'm doing this number here. So I'm getting my wrist to bow, like a Dustin Johnson or a Brooks Koepka. You're getting that action. When you get this club face to open up, when you get this wrist to cup, they're both the same, by the way. When I take the backswing and I cup the wrist and the club face opens up, now what I'm going to do is, as I start to come down into the strike, I'm going to start trying to square the club or release the club to square the face. And when I release the club to square the face, now all of a sudden I have to stop the handle, accelerate the head, which is going to take the shaft of the golf club and it's going to stand it up into the air. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a toe hit. So it'll go open, release, then we toe hit it. By the way, you get no finish position because all your energy has run out before you've gotten to the strike. And so what happens is that wrist position is creating a real problem in allowing you to carry this golf club down into the strike and keep that handle a little bit lower. So what I want you to feel is, when you take this club back, and you've heard me talk about this before, feeling like the club face is pointing to the golf ball as we start to take it into the backswing. And as that happens, now all of a sudden I can get that bow in the wrist. And when I get the bow in the wrist, now I can drag that club face into the strike and the handle can stay low. This will come out, that ball there launched at 23 degrees. I'm not talking about distance. I'm just talking about the launch angle. That launched at 23 degrees. And it launched at 23 because when I stop that handle and stand it up in the air, now the shaft is leaning backwards. I've added loft. Big problems. So now I'm going to work on getting this wrist right by getting that club face to get there. Now I hit that one. Very, very straight shot. That might even get to the target. Let's see. Yes, I love when that happens. But come on up here and let's just look at this, because this is what this is all about. When I start chucking that club and standing it up, now all of a sudden my launch angle goes from 23 degrees down to 17. And when it goes from 23 to 17, now all of a sudden I get a little bit of distance. And when I get that distance that I want, now I get the strike. Now, the final part of this thing is making sure that we actually focus on getting the handle to get a little bit lower. So what I've got here is I've got my breed bar. I'm going to bring this into the area where I'm going to hit this golf ball. So pull this in like this. Let me pull a ball in here. Set that up so that's in the green. And now, right here, what you can see is that this bar right here is just outside of my wrist. I've got it a couple of inches outside my wrist. If I take the handle and stand the handle up in that fashion there, all of a sudden you can see that this handle is going to hit that bar. That camera one down the line, you can see that. When I get my hands here, I should be able to, as the handle stays low, get my hands to pass underneath that. So I'll do this slowly. And as we go, now I get it to pass underneath. Launch angle back to 17.6 on that one. And again, the launch angle, quite frankly, isn't going to be related to necessarily the speed of the club. Try it again. Same thing again. Good strike. Didn't hit the bar. That bar stays underneath. The handle stays underneath the bar. The body is rotating properly. I'm not flicking the club or getting a strike that I don't want. The handle of the golf club is passing through. I'm getting the heel of the golf club into the ground. That's the sensation that I have. And finally, the sensation that I have is that my body is rotating a little bit. So what's happening is now we combine all this together, and we're going to do that in a second. When we do the wrist and making sure the release point is hanging on, now all I got to do is make sure that that handle is staying low. This is what you'll see with a Dustin Johnson or Sergio Garcia, some of the best ball strikers out on tour. Handle height does not raise a lot. There's a good strike. Launches out, 17.7. I haven't created any speed. All I'm doing is getting a feel for what this feels like. And as you start to do this, you're going to start to understand, man, I feel like at impact, the handle of the golf club and my forearm are not in the same line. As you start to understand that, that's when you start to understand leverage power. Okay, so here we go. Oh, that was a really good one there. That even had a little bit of a butter cut on it. That was excellent. So now I take the bar out, put it back over here, and now I'm going to imagine that breed bar is there. Same thing across. Handle going under. That's all I'm thinking about right now. Handle underneath, excellent right there. Launch angle back to 17.1, brilliant. That's exactly what I want. I'm looking for a 17-degree launch. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all this together. All right, now, it's not a lot to put together, because basically what you're talking about is you're talking about making sure that the face of the golf club is pointing to the ball in the backswing. That's the first part of this whole thing. We take care of that flexion in the wrist. That'll happen by thinking about that club face. Now when we come through, now all I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my handle is staying ahead of the club head and moving left or staying low. I should be able to get a strike that's going to be pretty solid and launch at about 17. So that one there, pretty good strike. Didn't quite get the solidness of hit on that one, but come on up here and let's see what we got. And what we got was we got a launch of about 17.9. So pretty good. I know I can do better. Obviously the distance wasn't where I wanted it, but I got it close, okay? And what you're going to find is as you start to piece all this stuff together, it takes some practice time. It takes some repetition. And as you start getting the repetition in there, you start getting comfortable with all this, all right? Let's try it again. And I'm a big fan of taking practice swings, particularly when we're working on multiple thoughts here, which is what I'm doing. Now, same thing. Oh, this was destroyed. And this one is in the basket right in the center. So here's what I need you to understand. In order for you to take care of the success of the strike, you've got to take care of the lie angle. And the lie angle at impact is created because the club face opens up, and now we're trying to square that face at the strike. We're releasing the club face for face, not for power. When that starts to happen, the lie angle of the golf club is going to become more upright, and when it becomes more upright, the only thing in the ground is going to be the toe, which is where you better hit the ball. And if you hit it in the center of the club face, because the toe is in the ground and the heel isn't, it'll be a thin strike, and it won't be that solid strike that you're looking for. You'll also tend to hit that shot a little bit fat because the toe and the heel are getting into the ground at different points, and typically the toe gets in the ground earlier. So what you want to do is take care of the club face, then you don't have to release that club early, and then we can focus on getting that handle to stay low. And when that handle stays low in there, now all of a sudden the heel of the golf club and the toe of the golf club are at the same height along the ground. That will help you improve your strike, help you hit it more in the center of the club face, give you a little bit more distance and a lot more consistency, and that is a FootJoy fix.